Are Trump's funding freezes completely tearing down the U.S. government, or are they saving it? Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Trump wants you all to get sick and die. That's right, majority of Americans who voted for Trump. Bet you all feel pretty dumb now. Since coming into office, Trump has used executive orders like a giant wrecking ball, most recently using them to freeze government funding for a variety of things. Now, I could take a moment to look up what things specifically, but I'm too busy being outraged to do it. These funding freezes are inhumane and disturbing. They endanger millions of lives and will kill people. Democrats warned that Trump's order could harm programs used by millions of Americans, including early childhood programs and food and rent assistance. Your food stamps, Medicare, gone. And The Guardian tells us these freezes aren't about shrinking the size of the federal government. Instead, it's about centralizing control in Trump's hands to replace American democracy with an oligarchy. Hey, that's ridiculous. It's been an oligarchy. Many thought that even hospitals and police departments would lose federal financial support, which may have actually excited the defund the police folks. What the heck? We like Trump now? But what actually happened? On his first day in office, Trump issued an executive order declaring a 90-day pause on all foreign assistance pending a review. Next on the chopping block was the Office of Management and Budget. This is a memo freezing spending on federal loans and grants, calling out financial assistance for foreign aid, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, DEI, woke gender ideology, and the Green New Deal. And with that, more than 2,000 programs came under review, and agencies had until February 10th to submit detailed information subject to Trump's executive order. Now, even though the memo specifically said the pause didn't include assistance provided directly to individuals, including Medicare and Social Security benefits, you still had people like this going on TikTok, which is sadly still a thing, melting down because they thought Trump was taking away their food stamps, housing, and Medicare benefits. Some people really think Trump is trying to starve people to death, which is insane because just look at how happy he is feeding people. Honestly, I bet he wishes he lost the election so he could work here full time. So, none of that is actually happening. In fact, Secretary of State Marco Rubio issued waivers for humanitarian aid. Then the Trump administration issued a follow-up memo letting everyone know the freeze would not affect programs that provide direct benefits to recipients and that Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and food stamp payments would not be subject to the pause. Clearly, Trump is taking away your Medicare and food stamps. I don't see how you could interpret it any other way. That's why not just one, but two U.S. district judges temporarily blocked the spending freeze until February 3rd. And 23 state attorneys general filed their own lawsuit arguing that the federal spending freeze was harming their residents. Now, there were reports that some states were shut out of the Medicaid system, but the White House blamed it on an outage, not funding freezes. So if we just take a moment and not assume Trump is pure evil and trying to kill people, what's going on with these funding freezes? Well, Trump officials say they want to crack down on wasteful government spending, citing this as an example.
DOJ and OMB also found that there was about to be 50 million taxpayer dollars that went out the door to fund condoms in Gaza. That is a preposterous waste of taxpayer money.
$50 million for condoms. Assuming that USAID gets condoms for around 5 cents a piece, that's enough to give out 1 billion condoms. Even Nick Cannon doesn't need that many. So thank goodness that claim is completely inaccurate. There's no evidence that $50 million went to giving condoms away in Gaza. The evidence actually shows that only a little over $45,000 worth of contraceptions were given to the Middle East, all of which went to giving Jordan oral and injectable contraceptives. I don't know who that Jordan guy is, but he's got issues. What probably happened is the Trump administration mixed up Gaza in the Middle East with the province of Gaza in Mozambique, which received condoms to combat HIV, where about a quarter of the adult population is HIV positive. Of course, is that where U.S. taxpayer money should be going? But condoms aside, there's something else the Trump administration has an interest in cracking down on, and that's the NGOs making billions from the border crisis. As I covered in a previous episode, the Biden administration drastically pumped money in grants to manage the migrant crisis, funding efforts like temporary housing and aid distribution. These NGOs spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on things like music therapists and people-plant interactions. The only way I can see this helping the migrant crisis would be migrants seeing this and think, man, this country is stupid, let's go back home. Oh, and they also gave the CEOs big paychecks because that non-profit just applies to everyone else. One of the biggest NGOs, Southwest Key Programs, has a history of paying its CEO over $1 million a year. It could afford to do that because it received over $3 billion between 2015 and 2023. But surely that was money well spent, right? Hey, it sounds like I'm setting you up for something. Well, guess what? The U.S. Justice Department sued Southwest Key Programs for sexual abuse and harassment of unaccompanied migrant children as young as 5. Let me repeat. Unaccompanied migrant children as young as 5 under U.S. custody were sexually abused. How's that for a punchline? Horrific? I agree. Aside from abuse, there's also the fact that many NGOs are facilitating mass illegal migration under a UN-led initiative called the Regional Refugee and Migrant Response Plan. That basically hands out cash cards, vouchers, and services to people headed to the U.S. But they're still getting musical therapists and people-plant interactions, right? That's what they really want. Nay, need. There's a bunch of other questionable spending practices, especially when it comes to programs promoting DEI, such as the U.S. spending $4.1 billion on global LGBT initiatives, which include, I kid you not, a nearly $350,000 project to translate a homosaurus into Spanish. And no, that isn't a gay dinosaur. It's like a thesaurus, translating definitions like anonymous sex, aromantic porn films, pederast, children's sexuality, and gay children into Spanish. Hopefully they also talk about consent, which would be an easy translation in Spanish because no means no. Now, typically, U.S. taxpayers hope that the money the government forcibly takes from them at least goes to something that benefits Americans. So we'll have to see what happens at the end of the review process. But there is so much news happening. Matt, Shelley, and I, we don't have enough coffee to keep up. Please, help us get our coffee. Subscribe to our new premium website, AmericaUncovered.tv. It's just the price of a bag of coffee, and you'll be helping me stay up all night long doom scrolling on X so I can make episodes. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thank you for watching America Uncovered.